I'm glad someone finally asked.
Second.
Let me get my phone.
I want to talk about, if you don't mind, directing the really intense...
Give it one more, please.
Go ahead, Jake.
Go for it, Jake.
Anna loves you. Go.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Guys, good to see you both again. Thank you for taking the time.
Nice to see you, Jake.
Yeah, Anna, I'm going to start with you. Now that you have experience behind the camera, you know what it takes to pull off a film, I guess from a director's perspective. I'm curious, what is a scene, a shot, or a moment from one of your past movies that you would have loved to have been behind the camera for, to know what that moment felt like from the perspective of a director?
Oh, God, I thought you were about to be shady and ask me to be like, how would you have done it different? And I was like, Jake, you know I can't say that.
I would never. Not on the first chunk of
There's
question.
a long list.
I'm glad someone finally asked.
Second.
Let me get my phone.
Hang on a second.
I'm gonna put Rob Marshall on blast. No, but I mean, actually, like, speaking of Rob Marshall, I think like being behind the camera for a lot of Into the Woods would be incredible. I mean, the visuals there, and you know, Dion Beebe, the unbelievable cinematographer. The production design, all of those performances, I think that would have been really dazzling. But at the same time, I say that, and then I'm remembering like, well, actually, when Meryl Streep was doing The Last Midnight, I remember turning to James Corden and being like, do you know what people would pay to be like 3 feet away from Meryl Streep as she's doing Sondheim's Last Midnight? Like, this is like, I feel like a Make-A-Wish kid. Like, why do I get to be here doing this? So there are times where I'm like, oh, I mean, that must have been a really wonderful experience to be behind the camera. And then I'm like, actually, in some ways, I was closer to the action than he was. So I don't know, maybe I wouldn't change anything.
It all worked out the way it was supposed to. This is for both of you. I'm going to be honest, because I want to talk about the real footage of that episode of The Dating Game, because I did this thing that the moment the movie was over, I had to do what everyone I think is going to do, which is grab your phone and go on YouTube and go find that actual footage. I'm sort of curious, as actors, as a storyteller, the first time you watched that footage, what was the most important thing you took away from seeing Rodney and Cheryl on that show?
Well, I mean, I'll say a couple things. One is that, you know, I always knew that I wasn't really interested in like hyper detailed accuracy. You know, the dress I'm wearing is nothing like the dress that Cheryl was wearing, and those things really didn't matter to me. But one thing that I remember thinking the second that I, you know, saw some of this footage was how boyish Rodney seemed. You know, there was a real like childlike quality, and you could see how disarming that would be. You know, it seems like when he gets his first laugh, and this moment is in the movie a little bit, that there's this delight that flashes across his face for a split second. And I think that really speaks to how difficult it is to know if you're in the presence of someone predatory. But I'll also say that, you know, the clips that are online are fascinating, but, you know, the episode in its entirety appears to have been lost to time. So it was really fun to take that vacuum and use it as an opportunity to do this thing that we do where Cheryl kind of goes off the rails a bit, because in the lost footage that probably didn't happen, but it's a really exciting thing to imagine because you know, you're kind of rooting for her, and that section of the movie is really fun, but it's also, as the viewer, you know that it's getting her closer and closer to danger. So it's a kind of fantasy section of the film that is kind of emotionally really complicated for the viewer.
For me, it was you know, I can't say, I don't want to say this way, but just like the ability of this man to be in national television in what was one of the most famous watched shows back then, and to know that he knew what he was doing and that nobody else but him knew that. And what that plays, like what that, like that was so much information for me as you know, about to play him. It just gave me an idea of the balls that this dude had to do that, man, you know. Crazy.
It makes it even more scary, which is
Yeah.
insane. They're pulling me out of here. Anna, really quick, I want to talk about, if you don't mind, directing the really
Oh no,
intense.
give it one more, please.
Go ahead, Jake.
Go for it, Jake.
thank
Go
Anna
for it,
loves
Jake.
you. Go.
I love you. All right, so I just want to talk about directing the really intense, brutal murder sequences in the film, and I'm curious as a director the difference between how you needed to speak to the amazing actresses who play the victims versus how you spoke and directed to Daniel. Or were they two different types of conversations in direction, or did you speak to them the same?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, Danny has to be the hero of his own story. You know, I was really asking a lot of Danny to be the one to go into that really dark headspace and make himself believe that he was doing the right thing, and you know, sometimes that he even saw himself as a victim in these situations, and you know, it was almost like at least the women were living in reality, and Danny's character is kind of in his own warped reality, but it's still very real to him. But I mean, I do think that I tried to just take care of everybody in the same way, because I was asking a lot of everybody. Like there really aren't like fluff scenes in the movie where things are just like kind of chill. So I really wanted to honor how much I was asking of people, especially if they were showing up only for like 2 days or something, that, you know, what they were doing really mattered.
This is genuinely one of my favorite movies so far this year. Thank you so much for the extra question. And Daniel, your line delivery of tell me your phone number back, I think is one of the most chilling things I have heard in a movie probably in 10, 15 years. That was unbelievable. But I love you guys. And seriously, thank you for taking the time. I really do appreciate you.
Thank you, Jake. It's always good to see
Appreciate it.
you.
Good to see you guys. Talk to you soon.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.